This is about those who are looked down upon, exploited and laughed at, cheated and deceived. In short, the losers. Those who have done nothing wrong and are punished anyway. The poor wretches and soft touches. Those beaten by fate, taken by surprise by evil-minded villains and ending up looking stupid. People that everyone likes. Kind of. Because they don't defend themselves and you can take advantage of them. Today we are talking about people who just want to be nice. They shy away from conflict and prefer to give in rather than get involved in an argument. They leave important elements of their emotional repertoire unused and end up unconsciously using them to their own detriment. This refers to willpower, aggression and anger, key elements of assertiveness which collapse or fail to grow into a pillar of the personality if they are suppressed early enough. In order to be able to react appropriately to challenging situations, it is helpful to have a rich repertoire of options at your disposal. Only then do you really have a choice. Otherwise, you behave like an automaton. If you press this button, you get black coffee. If you press the other button, you get latte. Water, juice, tea? Unfortunately, none of these are available. Evidence? Well, there was an interesting study by King's College Hospital in London where they took a look at women with suspicious lumps in their breasts. Some of them, unfortunately, developed cancer, while in others the tumors were benign. The interesting thing was that the women with cancer showed extreme suppression of anger and other feelings. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is an incurable degenerative disease of the motor nervous system that leads to increasing muscle weakness and eventually paralysis. Those affected die on average around 3 to 5 years after being diagnosed. They usually die from pneumonia, swallowing problems, or respiratory paralysis. Back in 1998, at the International ALS Symposium in Munich, 2 neurologists, Wilburn and Mitsumoto, gave a really interesting lecture. They called it, "Why are patients with ALS so nice?" And it was all about how patients with this condition are so kind and caring. They had found that experienced carers could predict whether someone had ALS or not even after brief contact with the patient before the examination. "I'm afraid this person has ALS. They're too nice." A similar result was also found in a study of men with prostate cancer, which was linked to a reduction in killer cells, the body's first line of defense against cancer. And the reduction in turn can be linked to the suppression of a certain emotion. Yes, anger. Some people just don't seem to be able to get angry, which can have serious consequences for their health. Which feelings are shown is decided in the brain, bypassing the will. It's like the mind is doing its own thing, without giving us a chance to intervene. The middle area of the frontal cortex is responsible for flexibility in decision-making. Newborns just rely on their instincts and reflexes, so they don't need to worry about complex decision-making with an immature frontal brain. No baby thinks about whether it will disturb someone's sleep if their tummy hurts. No baby withdraws if an elementary need of life might be inconvenient for someone. It's only as we grow up that the important connections in the brain develop, giving us the ability to make choices by considering different options. As we grow, we gain more freedom to act. As adults, we can choose to put other people's needs before our own, even if it might be inconvenient. This can be based on compassion and a willingness to help, for example. However, if an early trauma intervenes destructively, it can mess up how you develop. Some people might not even learn to be kind to themselves. When they go through something really tough, the trauma reaction can mess with their nervous system and make them stressed all the time. It is completely normal to have these automatic defense reactions, but they become more entrenched the more often they are called up. Then it is no longer a choice to put your own wishes aside in favor of others. It's not that you don't want to, but you've practiced and consolidated this behavior because of past experiences. It's as if the past has a firm grip on you and it's hard to break free from the behaviors that used to keep you safe. Kids learn to behave how they are expected to be kind and obedient in order to keep their world from collapsing. They take the blame when their parents argue. If only they could just mend their ways, the parents would love each other again and the family would be preserved. But then they grow up and carry on doing it. The attitude that used to protect them from the wrath of the gods or parents or other influential figures comes back like a boomerang and hits them where it hurts the most, in the body. Anita Moorjani knows this only too well. She's the author of Healing in the Light, How I Overcame Cancer Through a Near-Death Experience. Now in her mid-60s, she was 43 when she was diagnosed with metastasized Hodgkin's lymphoma with no prospects of a cure. This is how she describes herself as she used to be. Before I had cancer, I was afraid of disappointing other people. I was a flatterer. I completely lost myself in trying to please other people. It was so exhausting. I was a people pleaser. I was always trying to be a savior and I was always there for everyone. It was until I was confronted with cancer that I learned to value myself and my own needs. It wasn't until I was in a coma that I learned to be myself. It's so important to remember that being nice all the time can sometimes backfire. I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt that way. I'm sure many cancer and ALS patients feel the same. Have you ever thought about Edward Bach's writings? He really knew that kind of people. And he noticed them so often that he created a flower essence to help them. He described it like this: for kind, quiet, gentle people who are over-anxious to serve others. They overtax their strength in their endeavors. Their wish so grows upon them that they become more servants than willing helpers. Their good nature leads them to do more than their own share of work, and in so doing, they may neglect their own particular mission in life. The flower essence that helps to uplift such people is called Centaury. In his new book, The Myth of Normal, Gabor Mate, a Canadian doctor and trauma expert, talks about how two beliefs can sometimes be the reason for developing cancer. I am responsible for how other people feel, and I must not upset anyone. It's so interesting to note that there's a real build-up of serious illnesses, including rheumatic and autoimmune diseases in personalities who correspond to Bach's Centaury type. And second, it's important to remember that these behaviors aren't just something you're born with, they are learned. It's a learned behavior pattern that can make you feel like you're always being passed down the social ladder, like you're the errand boy for all others. It can also make you more likely to be susceptible for life-threatening illnesses. Looking back, it's interesting to see how Edward Bach also began to see it this way. When he was developing his Bach flower remedies, he initially focused on type remedies, which were supposed to appeal to certain innate personality types. But as time went on, he moved further and further away from this. Then one day, he made situational essences and realized that all were ultimately such situational remedies. He changed his mind and believed that every person could develop in the direction of a character that corresponded to his early flower essences, which he had initially regarded as type remedies. So it looks like something might have happened during development that caused people to become the way they are now. But what happened to them? This phenomenon is often referred to as trauma. In developmental psychology, being kicked out of the community is said to be one of the most painful and traumatic things that people can do to each other. In the Stone Age, being excluded from a clan could literally mean the difference between life and death. Since then, not much has changed in terms of how being rejected can affect you emotionally. It's heartbreaking to think how much the nice ones are willing to give up to avoid being rejected. This means that people who are Centaury personalities often behave in a way that makes them easy to bully. Bullies can be pretty good at reading people, and they often realize that they won't have to put much effort in to get what they want. The nice kids don't stand up for themselves when they are having their lunch taken away, and later in life, their health, unless they do something to become strong and resilient again. Psychologist Lydia Timoshuk calls them type C personalities. C stands for Cancer, but in our context it could just as easily stand for Centaury. She says that type C people are very likely to get cancer. She described them as cooperative and placating, unobtrusive, patient, hiding negative emotions, especially anger, and submissive to authority. Instead, malignant, which is what the nice ones do not want to be, is the term used to describe the disease of which they can become a victim if they remain as they are. Timoshuk had interviewed 150 people with melanoma and found that these patients were overly nice, thoroughly pleasant, non-complaining and non-assertive, and were labeled pleasers. Think of the woman whose first thought after being diagnosed with cancer was, "Who will look after my husband now?" Michelle Obama recommended the bullied, "When they go low, we go high." If only it were that easy. It takes self-confidence and self-esteem. But some people are taught from an early age that they are worth less than others, and they react to that on the inside, whether they want to or not. If they don't want to, they do anyway. For example, statistically, people who experience racism against themselves die 7 years earlier. Now you might say, that's not fair, and of course it isn't. You're always there for everyone, helpful and polite, ignoring your own needs. And what's the reward? You get sick. What these conspicuously friendly beings have not been trained in is assertiveness. Many have a dark suspicion that they might go mad if they gave in to the inner impulse to resist. Perhaps they would even kill their opponent. There is a deep fear of relinquishing control. The monster they suspect is inside them could wreak havoc. Centaury alone is not enough. If you want to learn how to defend yourself externally, you have to become familiar with your volcano within. Edward Bach described another of his flowers this way: for fear of the mind being overstrained, of reason giving way, of doing fearful and dreaded things not wished and known wrong, yet there comes the thought and impulse to do them. Cherry plum, which is the flower he's talking about, seems to be the appropriate means not only to enhance the effect of Centaury, but to make it possible in the first place. The most important thing about the modern definition of trauma is that it is no longer seen as the violent, terrible event, but as the inner reaction to one, or a number of negative experiences that lower your self-esteem. And this reaction can be changed. The event cannot, because it lies in the past. To escape the trap of niceness, Centaury is a good place to start. The addition of a cherry plum essence teaches you to make friends with your inner tiger and learn to ride it. Now you are able to approach the underlying trauma. The gift of Amble Willowherb has been shown to heal early childhood trauma in particular. Larch and sunflower increase self-confidence. Together, they help you to get really angry and to use your aggression in self-defense rather than against yourself. Finally, the number of people who unintentionally harm themselves continue to rise. It's not just the honest ones who are the only ones paying their full tax burden and the nice ones who are jeopardizing their health for the good of others. There is a third member of the group. We find them among their opponents at the other end of the spectrum. The situation is hardly any different for those who argue, hate, and bully. Anger and aggression are a sign that the nervous system is on alert, and if this alertness lasts too long, it can lead to a breakdown of the body's defenses and immune system through constant high blood pressure and permanently elevated cortisol levels, and then they meet the nice guys again in the cancer ward. While I was preparing this video, another project was taking shape, a book that also explores the topic, but from the perspective of those affected. Sara Jane is an author, international speaker and channel, and the founder of Vocal Reiki and Gift of Healing TV. Sara spent so much time and effort gathering together 27 beautiful stories from lovely people who all have one thing in common. They were all afraid of not being nice, of being rejected, of being seen as selfish. And for a long time, they were prepared to hide their own concerns behind the front. The stories in I Didn't Become Selfish, I Became Harder to Manipulate describe what happened to them. But let's hear what Sara herself has to say about it.
We all have a story to tell. The story of our life, the experiences we have gone through, how they made us feel, the effect those feelings had on our belief in ourself, our wake-up call, finding ourself, our growth into who we should be. Many people who have had a traumatic experience, especially in their early years, become people pleasers, which is a classic trauma response. If that trauma left you with feelings of being unloved, unwanted, not good enough, etc., you take on board as fact the truth, anything negative others say about you, struggling with anything positive, loving and caring. You can be so desperate to be accepted and not upset others that you always say yes to them, follow their rules, their wants, and ignore your own. You become lost in what other people say about you and what you think they are thinking about you. Then one day something happens that, whether quickly or over a period of time, opens your eyes and your heart to yourself. A light bulb moment of why am I worrying about what others think about me when they aren't? They have too much going on in their own life. Quote, "What other people think of me is none of my business." Dr. Wayne Dyer. For me, this was really freeing. Somehow it gave me permission to live my life as I chose to do the things I chose to do, and to have the courage to say no when I didn't wish to do something for whatever reason. I was learning to love myself, to have thought, care, and consideration for me. When we start to find ourselves unlearning everything we thought we knew about ourselves from what others said and how they behaved, we become less easy to manipulate. Those that always got us to do what they wanted start hearing no from us and start calling us selfish with the hope of regaining control. Remember, they are the ones who are being selfish. They are just projecting onto you how they feel. Your story is a powerful tool to support others to wake up to their own lives, the courage to take back control and say yes to themselves.
So be nice, but not too nice. If you begin to be kind to yourself at last, you might have to let go of some friendships that aren't really good for you. But you'll also attract new friends, especially an inner one that will help you live healthier, more fulfilled, and even longer. These new friendships will help you live your best life with more energy and happiness. For now, stay healthy, enjoy life, and have fun, and reward yourself, even if you can't think of a reason to do so. Then do without one, simply because you feel like it. You are worth it.